as I was researching which printer to buy, which photo printer to buy, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of watching YouTube videos, watching people like Keith Cooper talk about the intricacies of the technology, and I still had a lot of questions. Eventually, spoiler alert, I did buy a Canon PIXMA Pro-200s, but the question remained about some of these nagging thoughts. And one of those nagging thoughts was, how good is it for printing black and white photos? How good is it for printing black and white photos on matte paper? That is what is ostensibly the greatest weakness of dye inks today. And so I wanted to do an experiment about that. Now that I have a printer in my hands, I wanted to see how much of a mistake I made, or whether it is a nothing burger. And so I created an experiment, a simple experiment where I printed the same picture on 4 different papers, ranging from a luster paper and a first-party paper, various matte papers, and including one third-party paper. So the papers I picked are the Canon Photo Paper Pro Luster, which is, let's say, the baseline of what should work well. And then I picked a cheap Canon paper, matte paper, which is the matte photo paper, which is quite cheap, and maybe with low expectations, but we'll see how it does. And then the more well-known decent paper, which is the Photo Paper Pro Premium Matte, the PM101 that people talk about a fair amount. Plus, I picked a Red River paper, the Aurora White, which happened to be is part of a sample pack that I had. And so this would give me a wider range of paper types, and whether they were first party or third party, to find out how black and white printing, and especially black and white printing in the black and white print mode in the driver, actually works well. If I lay the prints on the floor side by side like this, in natural daylight, the differences aren't incredible. They are noticeable, but I need to do a little bit more to be able to see the differences. So what I ended up doing is de-skewing the picture so that it's a little squarer, and turning up the vibrancy. And once you do that, it's clear that there are differences, that the photo matte paper does tend towards magenta, and yes, the premium matte paper does tend to have a bit of a warmer tint to the paper itself, actually. It's not so much the printing, it's the paper. But then the printing on the Aurora White, it does tend towards the yellow as well. How does this look when I put this under different lighting sources? So if I put it under the incandescent light, it really doesn't look very different. So, for all they're grossly inefficient, the incandescent light bulbs do have a fairly wide spectrum light source. Under LED lighting, the differences are greater. So starting with a daylight LED, these are just plain consumer grade ATCRI LEDs, so they're definitely not professional, and they're definitely not well balanced. You start seeing an exaggeration of the tints, and this is actually, if I switch to the warm white LED, it is fairly similar. That difference is there. But the worst case is if I try this with a compact fluorescent light, then things are really awful. The differences are much more extreme. So there's something to this. There is something to this metamerism story. Now I need to think about what to do about it. Well, one thing I could do is just not use the black and white mode. And in fact, that seems to be a fairly popular approach. And so I wanted to see what that really does. And so I took the Red River Aurora white paper and printed exactly the same picture using the color calibrated workflow, and to see how that goes and how that compares with the black and white mode. And you can't really tell here because it's video, so I will insert it as an overlay. But the difference is actually quite significant, and it obviously is different from paper to paper, from vendor to vendor, but generally speaking, yes. For a lot of papers, certainly for papers that are not Canon papers, the black and white mode is probably not the way to print color black and white prints with the Pro-200 and Pro-200s. And so that is one way of reducing the weird color casts, etc. That's not going to change the fact that the ink is metameric, that the different light sources are going to have different effects. But at least this is going to bring the baseline of what the print looks like into a much more accurate starting point. And then if you can control the lighting, I think that is a good way to get going here. So here is a better view of these prints. So on the left is the black and white print mode. It is the same, in both cases it is the same paper. It is the Red River Aurora White 300. And on the left it is printed in the black and white mode and the driver. And on the right it is printed in the color mode using the Red River provided ICC profile, so a fully color managed workflow. And the difference is pretty striking. You can really see how the color managed print is so much more neutral. And if I switch to the same picture, but having just cranked up the saturation so that you can really see the color casts more visibly, it's really apparent how the black and white print mode isn't accurate. And thinking about it, it makes sense, right? Because the print driver has no idea what Red River paper is, so you can see how the black and white print mode, which is a one-trick pony, really works okay, and I mean okay, not great, on Canon papers, and really doesn't work too well on third-party papers. So finally, one thing that I think we need to be honest about is what we're doing this printing for. So if you're a professional and you need to make prints that are going to last a long time and that you're going to give to people who are going to display them under random lighting, yep, sure. Pigment inks are probably the way to go. And the higher end printers that are pigment ink printers also will have better grayscale rendition because they have more inks. So yep, you can't avoid spending more money. But for a hobbyist, in my case, I'm printing pictures for my own enjoyment. They don't need to last a lifetime. They don't need to be displayed under random lighting conditions because I control the lighting. I think that I can work with this. Now, I need to be careful. There's definitely no question that just switching on the black and white mode, printing away like that, doesn't work super well, and that I need to be more careful to use a color managed workflow even when I'm printing black and white. But it works for me. It works, I think, for a lot of people. It's just, you have to be realistic that this isn't the end-all, do-all professional solution for everyone. This is a relatively cost-effective way of getting really good results the results in color are spectacular, but the good results in black and white, as long as you live with the limitations. And the limitations are mostly about display. They're not really about, the printing. The printing, I think, given good enough profiles, is actually manageable. So that's what I learned. Whether this applies to everyone, I don't know. But this is so far what I've learned, and I've had fun doing it. So here we go.